Welcome to Wine Road, the wine, when, and where of Northern Sonoma County. I'm your host, Marcy Gordon, with Beth Costa, Executive Director of the Wine Road.
Thanks to Ron Rubin, we're able to keep our podcast rolling along. The financial support of River Road Family Vineyards and Winery allows us to keep recording, keep sipping wine, and keep sharing stories with our listeners. Check out their website at riverroadvineyards.com and explore their Chardonnay, as well as a finely crafted Pinot Noir from the Russian River Valley. That's riverroadvineyards.com. And hey, thanks, Ron, for allowing us to make this show happen.
Welcome to episode 220. Today, our guest is Roger Beery from J. Cellars, and he is the proprietor at the Cellars, and his son is the winemaker. Welcome, Roger.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
It's exciting. So I think we should start out by saying you're calling in. And so today, we usually start our show with a wine of the day because we have a wine, but you're calling in for the show. So we don't have a wine. But if we did have a wine, if you did show up in the studio, what wine would you want to feature this morning?
Oh, goodness. I'm thinking maybe my wedding block, Russian River Pinot Noir.
Wedding block. Nice.
I like that.
Okay, so tell us about that wine.
Yeah, it's a wonderful Pinot. It comes from the Martinelli, one of the Martinelli vineyards, the one actually directly across the street from their tasting room.
Nice.
And it's a blend of a couple of clones that I like to work with, 115 and 677, or 667 rather. And it's just nice. It's full-bodied, and most of the Pinots that we make are fairly full-bodied. As I like to joke, I'm a 6'2", 220-pound Texan. I do not make wimpy wine.
That's
off-brand to make a wimpy wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's perfect. So how did the winery come to be, Roger?
Well, the winery came to be because back in 2000, whatever it was, our family, so my late wife, Donna, and I were really into wines our whole life. And what we didn't realize was that our passion for wine was rubbing off on our kids as they grew up. Mm-hmm. And we were very surprised when my son, I'm originally from Austin, Texas, so you're going to get a lot of Texas references here, was at Texas Tech University, and they announced the first viticulture enology program in the state of Texas, and he came to us and said, "That's what I want to do, Dad. I want to be a winemaker."
Oh my gosh.
And so it was kind of funny because we weren't real happy about that.
But yet you were really into wine.
Well, the reason was we felt there was a good probability that once he found out how hard physically the work was,
right,
that we'd be 2 years into it, and it's like, Dad, I need to change major.
Right, plan B.
Yeah, exactly. But that didn't happen, and he took to it like a duck to water, and he's now made wine all over the world since then, and he's currently, although he's our winemaker, along with our consulting winemaker, Adam Lee of Sedury.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, all of us are Austin expats, but, including Adam.
Right.
But in any case, so he is the manager and winemaker at Opal Moon Custom Crush in the town of Sonoma. And then our daughter Whitney was involved in the hospitality program at Texas Tech. And sort of at the last minute in her senior year, she decided that she wanted to go into wine hospitality. And based on a father-daughter trip that we took together, she knew she wanted to work at Jordan Winery.
Oh.
And so she reached out to them, and
I was going to say, don't we all?
Well, they were kind enough to hire her, and now we're almost 12 years into it.
Oh, my gosh.
You know what's so interesting, Rogers? Your story is almost the reverse of most winemakers. The kids grow up in a winemaking family, and then they don't want to be winemakers. Right. And yours is the reverse, that they want to be in wine, and then you just kind of followed their lead, which is kind of unusual. That's really great. They had that from the get-go.
Right. But then what also happened during this time when they were in college, we started writing a wine blog, the Bacchus and Beery wine blog that is still up. You can find it. I haven't written in it in 10 years, but it's still there.
That's how I first came to know you, really, actually.
Yeah. And so we started making more and more trips out here. And it was kind of funny because we started over, on the dark side in Napa. And so we did that, and I kept telling Donna, I said, "Can't you see us living out here?" And she said, "No, I cannot see us living out here." And then we started spending more and more time in northern Sonoma, and then that question came up: "Can't you see us living up here?" And she said, "Yeah, this is the place for us."
Yeah, that's great.
And so the blog became very popular back in its day. It allowed us to make a lot of contacts, meet a lot of friends. So when I decided it was time to drop my real career that paid me money and start making wine in 2014, it was a bit easier for us than a lot of other people because we already had connections with growers and winemakers and had personal relationships with them. And so, while starting any new venture is a challenge, with the collegiality that we find here amongst, fellow winemakers and all, it made it a whole lot easier for us. And so now we're at year 10.
I think that's one thing that I love the most about the industry is people do really help each other out. Like you said, just moving here and having those connections, they could help you with equipment, help you with, so many different things that if you were starting without that knowledge, it's harder. So, yeah, people do really help each other out in this business.
Yeah, I thought I'd learned a lot about winemaking from writing the blog because I got geekier and geekier. But once I got into it, I found out how little I knew. And so it was really great to be able to call on these people and ask them questions and say, "This seems like it's going wrong." No, don't worry.
Panic mode.
Wine, it's a lifelong learning adventure.
Indeed it is.
Always something new to learn, and it's never the same, and it's endlessly interesting. So it's a great place to go if you have a lot of curiosity.
Exactly.
So you have a tasting room now that is in the town of Windsor. So where's that out exactly, and what are the hours, and what happens when people come visit you?
Yeah, so we have a tasting room in downtown Windsor. What a lot of people don't realize is there's 5 tasting rooms in downtown Windsor, and I share my tasting room with Michael LeComp and Oak Tree Wine. So there's 6 wineries. So it's a good spot for folks if they want to park and try a bunch of wines. Downtown Windsor is often overlooked, and it really shouldn't be. But yeah, so our tasting experience, our tasting room, because we share it, is called Tasting Notes, and it's on Windsor Road, just a block walk from the green.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got both J. Cage wines in there and Oak Tree. So tasting experience for us is we have a 5-wine flight that includes a little white and some Pinots and our red blend, which is Sangiovese based.
Nice.
I'm not always there, like on a scheduled time,
mm-hmm.
but I just live right around the corner, and I love to go in and host people when they make appointments, and I know they're coming. And so, along with my partner Nessa and I, if someone makes an appointment, we do our best to come host those tastings personally, which is really nice for the consumer because very rarely do they get to sit down for an hour and a half or so with the owner and one of the winemakers and get to ask all the questions they always wanted to ask. And obviously the passion comes through sometimes more than just the tasting room person, if you will.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that's really a highlight for when I talk to visitors to the area is how many wineries you can go to here. And that is the bonus, getting to meet the owner or the winemaker. I mean, it really, that's your livelihood. So it really is more important to you than it's going to be to anybody just working in the tasting room. Yeah, it's a great experience.
Also, Windsor now is like a little destination in its own. There's enough tasting rooms. You could just spend the day right there.
Yeah,
Park
and there's lots of restaurants.
You can go to the different tasting rooms. You could even go to Oliver's, get yourself a picnic making. I mean, it is a great little one-stop, and it's such a sweet town, and there's so much to do there. I think people... It just overlook it going between Santa Rosa or Healdsburg, but Windsor is a destination of its own.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And people do love that. I think you can spend, if you have a few days here to go wine tasting, one day you can go out in the vineyards and experience that and maybe do a cave tour somewhere, a garden tour. But then if you can come someplace and just park and spend a day without your car and just walk, there are, like you said, several tasting rooms now.
Exactly.
Yeah, 5 actually.
Yeah, 5 right in Windsor. That's more than you could do in a day. And then some restaurants. Yeah, perfect.
Nice little sweet day in the park.
Is that a song somewhere?
Sweet day in the park. I don't know. I might have to write that. Don't get me started.
And a nice variety of restaurants as well.
Your last name is Beery. How did you get into wine?
And not Beery. Yeah, okay. Marcy, it's early in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. Well, interestingly enough, I do have an allergy to beer, so that doesn't work very well. It's certainly ironic.
That's convenient.
But no, I wish I could tell you some very sophisticated story.
Oh, it's okay. Well, it's wine's gain that you have an allergy, like the gluten or beer or whatever it is. So yeah, it's lucky for us.
Exactly. So the way I got into it actually was growing up in Texas. I was not really exposed to a lot of wine, and my family. My father didn't drink, not for religious purposes. He just didn't care for it, and my mother drank champagne. Now, I
there you go.
Found out,
my kind of gal.
No, because it turned out her version of champagne was Andre's Cold Cup.
Okay, well, there you go.
Well, back in the day, that was kind of it.
That was, I think, that probably is what we had at our wedding, but that was almost 50 years ago.
Yes, exactly. And so, but no, I was
That's
a young
so
man,
funny.
Coming out of high school, going into college, and wanted a way to seem sophisticated with girls.
Right.
And of course, it's Texas, so everybody drinks beer. So I sort of migrated to wine. Mateus Rosé was my
Oh,
game.
there you go.
Those iconic bottles.
Exactly.
Oh, that's too funny.
And then I found out that it was just more than a thing for me. And so we got into it very heavily. And fortunately, about the time I finished graduate school and had a little change in my pocket, the Austin wine scene just exploded.
Yeah.
And that was great. And so we learned a lot and started doing wine trips. Made our first wine trip to Napa and Sonoma in 1984.
Wow. Gosh. That's before the boom.
Yeah, that is kind of before the crazy boom.
Oh yeah. And I had my aha moment at Camus with Charlie Wagner one afternoon, and that's when I finally understood that wine was more than a consumer product.
Yeah.
It was science, and it was agriculture, and it was passion, and a little bit of alchemy to make it special.
Well, that's a great place to have an aha moment.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it would be hard not to.
Well, here's the other irony. The last stop of the day was of the trip was at Jordan, and Donna didn't drink red wine at that time. She only drank only drank white wine. So she was quite happy there with her wonderful Chardonnay.
Right.
But our traveling companion, John Bird, he and his wife were a bit older and more sophisticated, actually forced her to try the Jordan Cabernet when we were back at the Camilla Inn, which still exists.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
And she went, "Oh, my God, I love this wine."
Well, I would say you try a really great cab like that. Makes you a believer.
And then your daughter works there, so how full circle that is.
Exactly. exactly. But yeah, it was really funny. We jumped back in our Lincoln Land yacht. You remember those giant Lincoln Continental road cars? And we go up and we want to buy a couple more cases. And so we're going up what was a dirt road at that time. And this little Datsun was coming down, and young lady flags us down and says, "I'm sorry, we're closed." And big old John Bird rolls down the window and he goes, "Honey, you don't understand. This man's wife just lost her Cabernet virginity on board. So we need 2 cases."
Oh my God.
Oh my God, that's good.
That'll open the doors.
Yeah, that'll open the door.
Exactly. And as you said, now Whitney's been there almost 12 years.
That's like a lesson learned for people who go wine tasting and rule out wines. Like, I don't drink this and I don't drink that. And you really just have to just always try. And there is always, you can always just dump it out. You don't have to finish anything. But you can think like your wife, I just don't really like Cabernet. And then you just have a really great one. And it's like, okay, now I see the difference,
Exactly.
Yeah, you always have to be with an open mind and an open palate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've done the same thing myself, and I've been drinking wine for years and years, but I'm like, it's not my thing. And I think, oh, actually, that was delightful.
This one is my thing.
That was amazing. So
it's funny how that works. We see that in the tasting room today a lot with Chardonnay.
I do that a lot with Chardonnay. I'm like, no, I'm not a big fan, and then I'm a fan of so many of them.
Yeah, and I make sort of a white Burgundy style of Chardonnay,
Mm-hmm.
so it's as I like to say, it gets kissed by oak. It's not an oak butterbomb.
Crisper, yeah.
And I think so many people have been burned out on that big overblown buttery oaky style that they think that's what all Chardonnay tastes like.
Right.
Yeah, and then stylistically, the pendulum swings, and there's a marketing behind a lot of this as well. But yeah, you have to drink widely because your preconceptions never hold, especially in wine.
Yeah,
it's always
Exactly.
changing.
Yeah, there's
Beth likes Chardonnay that's very expensive. Usually,
that's usually
the
problem. That's the problem. Like, oh man, I love this. Oh no, it's out of my league. Oh well. Okay, so I think is there anything else that people need to know about your winery, or about if they come to visit you, or they don't have to? They don't have to make a reservation. If they do, then the odds are you'll be there. But they can have walk-in tastings, right?
Absolutely. We encourage walk-in tastings, and that's great. And if we happen to be there, we can certainly give them the winemaker host experience. But if they make a reservation, then we know they're coming. They'll get a customized menu, and we'll try to make it a point to be there. And quite frankly, I enjoy doing those tastings, and Nessa does too. So it's a lot of fun for us as well.
I was going to just wrap up with a couple of things. I want to mention that this coming weekend is February 15th will be the Wine Love Wine Trail, so people might want to check that out. They can find tickets and the list of participating wineries at wineroad.com. Then a couple of weeks from now, we have barrel tasting March 1st and 2nd. Again, all the details, the tickets, everything you need to know is online at wineroad.com. Anything else, Roger, that you have?
No, I just want to encourage people to come to Windsor and certainly come to Tasting Notes Tasting Room. And like I said, make an appointment so I can make a point to meet you and make sure you have a wonderful time.
I love the name Tasting Notes. I think that sticks
so
in your mind.
Cute.
It's
that's
cute.
Smart. Yeah, I like that too.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
plan.
you.
Before we wrap it up, I do want to mention a new blog that we've started at the Wine Road. And Marcy here, my amazing co-host, is the writer, and it's called Drink This With That. And we'll be posting once a month. And when I say we, I mean Marcy. We'll be posting once a month, and we're really trying to showcase how wine really pairs with everything. So we're really going to start out with a lot of different ethnic types of food groups and show how wine pairs with different things. Our first blog was a couple of weeks ago in January, and we did
tacos, which isn't that exotic, but I did get into the nitty-gritty of how different types of fish or beef or the different tacos that can go with wines. And for February, I have something cooked up that's going to be fun.
I can't wait. Okay.
That'll be good. So Roger, one thing, best way for people to reach you, what's the URL for the tasting room, phone number, anything you want to give out detail-wise for our audience?
Sure. So it's jcage, jcage.com, jcage.com. And the phone number is 707-318-6323. Call that number. You're going to get me, not a tasting room associate. So
All right.
We'll be taken care of.
That's awesome. That's
Wonderful.
great. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you so
can't
much.
wait to come by and check out the tasting room. Talk to you soon.
I'll look forward to that.
All right.
Take care now.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.